Hello and welcome to another episode of the Coffee and Podcast. We are all about coffee education and cultivating freedom for victims of human trafficking. I'm your host, Philip Klayman. I'm also one of the co-founders of Three Tree Coffee in Statesboro, Georgia. And we've been going on a multi-part series just to learn more about how coffee gets from the farm to your cup. We've already talked about farm to boat, boat to roast, and roast to shop. And today we're going to focus on what happens at a coffee shop to make your drink. It may just look like a latte. It may just look like a cappuccino, but it's pretty difficult when you're making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds at a time. And there's a lot to learn about that. And I could not be more excited to have Chris Deferio on the podcast today. Chris is the host and owner of Keys to the Shop podcast and consulting. He has been doing consulting and work in this industry for over 10 years, and he has management and leadership experience for 25 years in the coffee industry in numerous settings. So I'm super excited to have Chris on the show today. I think we're going to have a lot to learn from him. I personally have learned a lot from the podcast, Keys to the Shop. So go look it up. If you've never heard of it, go look it up now. Chris, thank you for joining today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, so about myself, I really just keeping it to the coffee part. I mean, I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and the only thing that I've ever done, professionally speaking, of course, we've all had odd jobs, grocery stores and the like, growing up. But after attending a ministry school for like scant 1 year of my life, I just chose coffee. And the reason I chose coffee was I had been a big fan of going to coffee shops. I was a young 20-something, or so. And I loved reading like philosophy and journaling and going to coffee shops and just getting jacked on caffeine and that kind of thing. It was a visceral part of my life at that point. This was out in Arkansas where I was living at the time, that I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I decided, you know what? It was almost like an epiphany. I'm going to do coffee. And I've never been to college, never pursued a trade. I just started working in coffee shops and I just went 100% all in. And that's what I've been doing for my entire career. So, and I moved around for different jobs. I found myself trying to start a coffee school in Indiana after moving there shortly after marrying my wife, who was from there. And that didn't go as well as I wanted it to. Then I moved back to New York, where I was from, and did a lot of management training work, started to burn out a little bit, and eventually found myself moving to Kentucky to follow a job for operations management. So I've kind of bounced around, but I've landed here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I try to pronounce it the way that people say you're supposed to pronounce it, which is the wrong way, like Louisville, right? Instead of Louisville. And so it's really a nutshell of who I am. I mean, I grew up just in a family that appreciated a wide variety of different kinds of, art forms and music. And I'd say there was a lot of creativity there. And maybe that kind of set me up for, my exposure to a lot of different cultural expressions throughout growing up, set me up to really appreciate the dynamic nature of coffee shops, which is really what drew me to the industry. The fascination with how all of this comes together from, like your series, like from the tree to just a cup of coffee that somebody in any coffee shop right now is ordering and receiving. It's fascinating that it can go so well to create that singular moment. But then there's any number of little hiccups along the way that can detract from that. And the craft and the art of that interplay is the thing that keeps me going. And that's behind Keys to the Shop, which I started about 7 years ago as a podcast. And just for professional development, to address the idea that we need to be detail oriented when it comes to people, operations, and quality in order to make those singular moments happen more often. Because really the value chain relies on that handoff. We don't want to fumble right at the handoff of such an amazing product. And that's why Keys to the Shop as a podcast and as a consulting company exists. So that's kind of Chris. That's kind of me.
Yeah. And so then you started this podcast and this consulting company. Was there any specific reason? You hinted at this maybe a little bit, that you were just so passionate about the details and maybe even upholding the details and maybe empowering others to uphold the details. But why the podcast platform? Why did you pursue that?
Oh, yeah. You know, early in the third wave movement, when we all were kind of figuring things out in the early 2000s, there was a lot of forums. And the forums were discussion places where you put your thoughts out there and people could post in response. But it was more like a platform where people could reflect on the thought that you just put out there. And there are still forums today, but they kind of died out a little bit. The podcast platform is a kind of platform that allows you to get involved in thinking about topics that you normally wouldn't think about. And you don't have anybody to try to rebuttal right there. So if you have any disagreements with the podcaster that you're listening to, you look kind of foolish arguing with them out loud in your car or in the shower or whatever, right? So it forces the idea to marinate a little bit more with you. So you give it more of an opportunity than your reflexive, maybe defensive reaction might be. That's why I like it. It's because it's challenged me. It's just like reading a book. You're going to sit with that idea long enough for your mind to either discount it thoroughly with due diligence, which is great, or to actually let it impact you in a way that will change your mind or change your life. So the podcast platform has always been helpful for me because I had no real resource as a manager in coffee shops and a manager of managers for professional development. You know, people could tell me how to pour latte art, and I had been a latte art instructor and, latte art judge and champion and all that fun stuff. And people could talk about recipes for pour overs and, that stuff. It was prevalent. But what about when I have to have a hard conversation with a barista? I don't know how to do that as well. So you go to these other podcasts that are business podcasts, then and books, and people who have books and podcasts. And so I thought, this is the kind of thing that we need, because really failure in coffee shops has more to do with people and communication and systems than it does the quality of the coffee. And we'd like to think it's the quality of the coffee, but, especially today, good coffee is everywhere. And if we think that it's the coffee, maybe we're just trying to fool ourselves. So we try to avoid and procrastinate on the real meaningful stuff. So that's what we try to do. We love coffee, but we want to address the things that are at the heart of what makes success possible. And that happens to be the people, operations, and quality, kind of in that order.
I love how you mentioned marinating on a concept. And I feel like that's even more relevant today, probably going to become more and more relevant over time, because things seem to be moving more and more fast, quick, reels, 30 seconds, TikTok, like 15-minute webinar, teach me everything I need to know about running a coffee shop. And it's just, sometimes we need to step back and slow down and just take it in and maybe let it sit in our head for a minute and really process the information. I just think that's really powerful. And I love just how you've shared, there is so much that goes into running a coffee shop and so many components, not just the quality of the coffee, HR, management, finances, tech skills, technology skills, all sorts of components to it. Last question I want to ask kind of about you personally is, you've definitely had a run with competitions. I want to hear a little bit more about what are some of the competitions you've participated in. And then you were a judge for a while in competitions, and you've recently decided to step back. So give us a little bit more of the story of your competition journey and why you decided to kind of step back from judging.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that was developing alongside of the third wave was competitions. And they came from the idea of testing barista skills, the early barista competitions. Danny and Sherry Johns in the 90s had these barista Olympic type, I forget what they called them. Eventually, those competitions, and they were very small, the kind of competitions you would see at a trade show, in a booth where chefs would compete, like who can make the best omelet kind of thing. But that's the genesis for a lot of great things. And that was a lot of forward thinking on their part. And I'm murky on the history of how it transferred over to the SCAA at the time, before the SCA was the merged identity of Specialty Coffee Trade Organization. But the competitions began in those early 2000s, and I think it was the first one was in Monte Carlo in 2000, if I'm correct. I don't know. But it was one of the things that I thought was synonymous with what it meant to be a professional. So if you wanted to see if you're a really good barista, part of it is, can you, handle the rush? Can you pour latte art? Are you really geeked out about coffee and do you know the flavors and the a little bit of the science that we were trying to learn at the time? And do you compete? And so I got involved as early as I could in competition, starting with latte art. Actually, I learned latte art because at a website called coffeeresearch.org, I think it's still around, the uploader had like a 20-second video of pouring this decent latte art. And that's really all I could find online. So I just watched it over and over again. And I taught myself latte art at a grocery store coffee bar that I was working in. And I heard about latte art competitions because I went to Coffee Fest in like 2003. And the very next year, in 2004, I drove myself down to DC to Coffee Fest, got my car towed right away because I parked in the wrong place. And my gear was taken with my car in the impound lot. So I had to borrow gear, and I still managed to win this competition. In latte art, it was really cool. My boss even bet me like $50 that he's like, if you win, I'll give you $50. He was like gobsmacked. I was working for Gimme Coffee at the time. It was my like first real specialty coffee job in upstate New York. And it really started me down this path of there's really something here. I'd already decided to do coffee, but winning that competition, I got invited back to teach as a past champion. And then I got invited by Bruce and Matt Miletto to take part in this DVD they were making about extreme barista, free pour latte art is the title. It's on my shelf back here somewhere.
Extreme barista. It sounds
yeah,
epic.
It's like a skate tape for latte art. And we even have like slow motion walking in the downtown Portland area. It's really weird. But it was great. David Schomer was the only other one at the time who had popularized latte art. And after discovering it, both from Bruce Miletto showing him, and then on his own research by going to Italy, and he had a VHS, which we all kind of passed around and watched. So getting to be on this DVD just kind of set me on this course, and I kept on competing. I won 2 more times, so I've won 3 times, but I also have been judging the latte art competition more or less when not competing consistently since 2004. So being involved in latte art to that degree since 2004, with a break in between the years of like 2012 to 2014 or so, when I invented a competition called America's Best Coffee House, which was really ahead of its time, and I wish would come back. It was a team competition based on actual coffee. We built a coffee shop every show. We would run a coffee shop for 45 minutes with this team, and it was fantastic. If you ever want to look up America's Best Coffee House competition, you'll kind of see what I mean. So that was the Coffee Fest side of competition. The U.S. Barista Championship side was the other side of my experience, where I tried my hand at these 15-minute routines where you serve 4 judges, espresso, cappuccino, and a signature drink. And then you give a speech about coffee and what you're doing, and express your ideas about science and social stuff. And it's a big pageant, and it always has been, and it's evolved over the years. It's a lot more sciencey now. There's still some pageantry, but there was a lot more pageantry back in the day. I mean, there was some wild presentations. They didn't score well, but it was so fun to watch because the people doing it, they didn't think they were going to actually win. They just wanted to really express themselves. And, slowly over time, we see the competition taking a little bit more of like, no, we really just, we want to win. That's fine. But those days, it was just really cool to see that kind of that variety. I was able to win my region in 2007. And then I went on to get fourth place in 2007 in the US. And after getting married, my attention to competition just plummeted. I tried to compete after that, but I just needed to be like 100% focused on it, or else I wasn't good. And I decided after a couple of bad attempts, I was like, no, I just have to like disappear for a while and go back under, work in coffee, continue with Coffee Fest and do that. But my competition career taught me a lot about myself, and it was exciting to be a part of a group and community of people who are all kind of testing to see what you could do with coffee. And it changed how I approached my cleanliness, my confidence on bar, and what I challenged future people that I trained to do in terms of hospitality and professional presence and that kind of thing. I didn't want coffee shops to be a competition stage, because that's just so egocentric and narcissistic. More, I want customers to feel how special a judge might feel knowing that somebody has crafted something for them. And that's my big takeaway. But yeah, I had my ups and my downs, but I enjoyed my time in competitions.
Yeah. There's this kind of concept in marketing. I'm sure you're aware of, like, social proof, right? Like you want it to be certain that your product is valuable and that other people prove that because they like it. Maybe they gave a like or a thumbs up, or they reviewed an item. But there's also like this component of self proof. I think everyone wants to know that they are able to achieve something. And I think in some areas it's hard to measure that or even know. In sports, there's some pretty clear trajectories of how you achieve or prove oneself. And it's neat to kind of hear you mentioning, I've heard other people mention this in competitions before. It helps build like a level of confidence and just kind of knowing where do I stand? What am I offering here? And I love the thought of a coffee shop competition that would do the same. I'm definitely going to look that up later. So then why leave some of these competitions? You've been judging for a while. What's the shift there?
Quick note, and I'll address that. The one thing about self-proof is that we have to pay attention to where we are, and does it have the ability to allow us that self-proof? So if you're a barista in a coffee shop that really pounds out the mochas, and you give yourself self-proof through traditional cappuccinos in a competition, but not at your job, then you're setting yourself up for disillusionment. You can have both. They're different. One's not better than the other. You can be just as happy as a professional working in a coffee shop in total anonymity. No stage, no podcast, no stardom. If you decide that what you value is the feedback you get from your customers and your coworkers over time, it's a lot more peaceful of an existence. I'll tell you that.
Great point.
So I just want to put that out there. But the reason I'm stepping back is because, well, it's 20 years this year that I started getting involved in Coffee Fest in 2004 with latte art. I've been judging for a long time, and it takes a lot of time and energy to create a bracket, to judge all the submissions, and it's fun. The community is really exciting. With Coffee Fest Latte Art Championship, we call it the Latte Art World Championship Open, because we do have a pretty wide variety of people. It's a very diverse pool of people that compete in this competition from all over the world, actually. And it's been going for 20 some odd years now. It's the original latte art competition, really. And so SCA's latte art competition, it has a lot of prestige. Also, in a lot of thanks to the fact that the prestige of the barista championships kind of goes over to that competition. Like it's the body of the SCA. But that wouldn't exist were it not for Coffee Fest latte art competition. There was a time in history where Coffee Fest was approached by the SCA to kind of get acquired, in a sense, not legally, but hey, do you want this latte art competition to be a staging ground for the US latte art competition, which is completely different format, because ours, the World Latte Art Championship Open at Coffee Fest, is more of a professional throwdown. Lots of stringent rules, tons of professional excellence. It's not exactly a throwdown, but it is a head-to-head bracketed competition. SEAs is more of a, like a barista competition, only with latte art, right? It's like the pours have over time been dominantly the animal drawings, latte art.
Is this for Coffee Fest or for the SCA?
Milk drawing, the SCA, yeah. And so you have this natural kind of like settling in on a style and a presentation that differentiates the two of them. Coffee Fest is just such a vibrant and encouraging community of baristas, and it's evolved over the years to just add more and more goodwill and community, and it's hard to walk away from it, honestly. But at the same time, I'm old.
How old are you?
Okay, I'm 45, but I think the idea that making way for a judge, or more judging according to like people who are currently respected in competition. Now, I may be respected as a judge, but I bet you there's competitors out there that don't even know that I used to compete, or that I was a past champion 3 times. And that's not up to them to find out. It's better for the competition that I say, okay, am I getting to be the, hey, fellow kids, am I that guy? And also, keys to the shop is taking a lot of time, because it's successful. There's consulting, and there's my clients, lots of opportunities for conversations at Coffee Fest. I still am going to be going and teaching. But I want to give that my energy and give way to the next level of competition for the latte art competition. So that's kind of my thinking. So it's been stewing in me for about last 2 or 3 years. And now it feels like it's an appropriate time for me to marshal my focus in the direction of Keys to the Shop more, and give opportunity over there.
Yeah, well, it shows incredible humility to kind of recognize that and say, who's next, right? Almost a passing of the torch sort of moment, generationally, or maybe specific people of saying, okay, the competition is going to continue to change and evolve. The industry is going to continue to change and evolve. And, doesn't mean you need to totally tap out yet. You obviously have tons of value. You bring tons of value in consulting, but I think that's neat that you're looking and saying, all right, who's next up, and what are they going to bring to the table? I do have one more question for you. I hear that you time yourself doing dishes. Is that true?
Yeah, I used to do that a lot more.
So what I want to know is what's your fastest time, Chris? What's the fastest you've ever gotten? I don't know, a tray of dishes? I don't know how to measure this. Like what would go in a dishwasher? Do you remember your fastest time?
I wish I could. I wish it's so contextually, like if it's really dirty, like at home or at work, just I would go in like minute increments. So I'm just going to say like, okay, 10 minutes for a buildup of 2 bus trays of dishes. Let's see, my method is usually to stack like with like, pre-rinse and let soak, and move to one quadrant of the bay where the dirty dishes are piled up, and then go systematically, starting with flat things stacked up and down, and then round things that are small, and then round things that are big as they dry. Like I do that at home too. That's how I do dishes. It all kind of stems from my insecurity of being yelled at for not doing dishes fast enough by one of my old bosses, and I'll show you how fast I can dish.
Amazing. What a great little tip. We all just got a lesson on how to do dishes right there. I'm going to give some of this a try. I don't flat dishes first, then round. This is
I'm sure there's a competition out there, Philip. Somebody Google it and see like dishwashingcompetition.com. I'm sure it exists.
Well, if there's not, maybe this is your next great adventure. You never know, but
yeah.
Awesome. Well, great learning more about you. Let's dive a little bit into our topic now. We're trying to look behind the bar, right? From a customer perspective, what all goes into making these cups of coffee? And I want to start just by sharing, I frequently have people come to me, and it's all in a great heart, but they say something along the lines of, it must be so nice running a coffee shop, or it sounds so nice just being in your own coffee shop and drinking coffee. And it feels like it has this connotation of you're kind of just sitting there drinking coffee all day, and that's about it. And and that's usually not what happens. Usually it's a lot of fires to be putting out, a lot of things to address. Do you hear this sort of talk a lot? And what is your response to people who maybe ask those sorts of questions, or maybe put it so simply?
Well, I think that everybody has heard this kind of, pontification about running a coffee shop or having a coffee shop, the dream of, I just want to have a space for the community where gather and fellowship and have good coffee and good friends and that kind of thing. And it's not that is terrible. It's not like, oh, shame on you for even thinking that, I'm not saying that. However, the goal, that's your destination. Like, you want to provide that for other people, means that you participating in that might just be what you sacrifice. If you're hosting a party, who is enjoying the party more, your guests or you? Well, at first it's probably your guests. Now, if you learn to enjoy hosting a party and you learn how to derive joy from other people's joy, then you end up loving hospitality. But if it's always a burden to you and you just bemoan the fact that you can't just sit there and have a cocktail, then you're never really going to host another party. You're going to wonder why you ever even invited these people to your party. To put it another way, I think a lot of people believe that opening a coffee shop or even having a career in coffee is like getting a one-way ticket in business class or first class to some far-flung destination. Like, it looks really good in the brochures. Look at this coffee shop that I love going to. I could do that. I have a degree in business, for crying out loud. Or, a lot of people retire from businesses. They work in tech or they work in some other field. And they say, well, I have a lot of experience in coffee. It just feels like a pretty low risk thing. It's a pretty surefire thing. And instead of thinking about it as a flight to a destination, it's more like a Greyhound trip across America. Have you ever read a Greyhound bus?
I've ridden buses, never a Greyhound.
When I was a teenager, there was many times where I, for different events, would go across the country almost on a Greyhound bus. And when I tell you, you question reality, I sincerely mean it. At 3:30 a.m., when you're just offloading, it's somewhere in the boondocks of Tennessee, and all of you are just like, and you're with some people that are just, they're people, and you're sitting on a curb, literally just waiting for the bus to do whatever, the bus driver has to do, or the smoke break, or I don't know what they're doing. But there's like 37 of those stops. And you're constantly being woken up, and it smells kind of funny. You don't know who died in your seat beforehand. You're going to the same place. You're going to get there, but you're just not there in the lap of luxury. And for a lot of owners, I feel like once they get into the journey, it's a lot more like that Greyhound ride than it is that business class flight where they can expect some drinks and a canapé, somewhere 2 hours into the flight. So that's what I think is, in my consulting, especially, either I will tell some people that maybe this isn't the right time for you. There's been a couple of occasions. Or, we're just going to prepare them to kind of grow themselves while they grow the business. Because that's ultimately why a business would succeed. It's not because you did your due diligence to get the right framework or download the right template or even hire the right consultant. It's all about who you become, how adept you are at leading people, or changing systems as they need to be changed as your business changes, handling disappointment and bouncing back, developing resiliency. So that's kind of the thing that I mentioned to people. And I say, look, this is a journey of discovery. It's not a journey of, I think we're going to do what those people do and we're going to be successful because of that. Because we're going to start looking ourselves in the mirror when we're on this journey. It's going to get pretty scary. Uh, but as long as you've embraced that from the beginning, I think you're going to be okay.
Absolutely. That is so true. As I look back at our journey, I completely agree. It's formed me and our team and our managers probably far more than we've maybe created this great experience. And I love what you talk about, deriving joy from other people's joy. That is not I'm going to sip on my Mai Tai as I'm on first class going somewhere. That's I'm going to get to know the guy on the Greyhound bus right next to me, right? And we're going to get to know each other and see what they value, what do I value. And that is one of the beautiful things about coffee. It's uniquely difficult in the food service industry, but it's uniquely beautiful in the sense that it can create a lot of community when you say, hey, let's learn from one another, let's get to know one another, and let's both grow together in this. I just think that's an incredible aspect of the coffee industry.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like that. Getting to know people along the way too is, I mentioned the person who can be satisfied in anonymity, never be known. They could be the best barista in the world. We would never know it. Why would they be happy in their job? It seems weird to us today to think if you don't have an social media, if you're not a champion or not trying to be a champion, what are you even doing with your life, right? But maybe they're the wise ones because they've gotten to know the people next to them, and they're just happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay. You've consulted with lots of businesses. You've led numerous businesses. You've consulted with many businesses. What do you find is one of the greatest challenges? Let's try and hone it into a more specific challenge. What's one of the greatest challenges of running a coffee shop?
Yes. So to me, it feels like the biggest challenge is always going to be people. If you ask that question to people who currently run coffee shops, they'll say people. Everybody gets okay, let me rephrase this because, and I'll explain this in a second. The industry is probably the biggest challenge for people because the industry markets a onboarding into the entrepreneur world like it's just spring loaded. We're going to throw you right in there. We're going to give you 6 steps to success. Here's our package deal. You get all this stuff. We're going to give you everything you need to run a great coffee shop. Now, the hackles get raised on my neck a little bit where I'm like, really? Everything you need? Now, we believe that because we're vulnerable, because we have not been in the industry before for the most part. There are some people who work in coffee that actually do open coffee shops. But you notice there's not as many opening coffee shops who have worked in coffee before. And it's because they know what they're getting into. And so they're like, no way I'm not going to open a coffee shop. I've worked in one before. So the marketers in the world, not out of malice necessarily, they know that people need help. And well, we sell a product that'll help you. Now, it might sound hypocritical for me as a consultant to say that because I'd be like, I can help you. But one of the ways that I want to help people is by saying, look, don't get pulled in by marketing to believe that something shiny and slick, technologically advanced, or full of accolades like I'm a past champion. These are not things you should buy or hire or put in your place, and they're not going to, they're supplements. They're not nutrition, right? Well, how could you build your business on supplements? You can't. You need to be grounded in something that only you can provide through that hard work and deep rootedness. And getting to that point, being patient with the process, being small, and don't despise small beginnings, right? Allow the growth to happen. That's the biggest challenge because we look and we compare ourselves and we say, my competitor or this company or that company. And we say, well, look at me. Look at me. We suck. I'm not doing that. I don't have that machine. I don't have a barista champion. Maybe I should. Maybe I should have this product because I feel very insecure. So our own insecurities matched with the hubris of marketing is a dangerous cocktail. And people get themselves in a lot of trouble because they just kind of walk right into this this gauntlet. And so in consulting, there's a lot of pushback that I offer. I try to be as honest as possible. I don't want to help people run shops that are financially successful, but are soul crushing, right? I also don't want people to be successful if they're terrible people. You know, well, let's open 6 more of these stores where we can just multiply how terribly we treat people, because we're insecure and we have this subconscious like angst about, you know, our negative experience in this industry. And so we're just going to pass that on unknowingly to our staff. But we're well branded. Our bags look good, but, you know, we have high turnover because the culture was never really the focus. It was always, how am I going to be successful? And I'll do anything except maybe sometimes the right things.
Yeah. So if managing people is one of the greatest challenges, I guess, do you think it's uniquely challenging in coffee at all compared to other industries? Or do you think it's just kind of the same across the board? This is a difficult part of business.
Food and beverage, customer-facing industries is the same. If you're a manager of a floor of bartenders or chefs in a Mongolian steakhouse where you're in front of people or whatever, or a coffee bar, it's the same stuff. People would much rather manage tasks, machines, you know, be on an assembly line sometimes than manage the emotions or deal with the emotions of people. That's why people say it's so hard. It's a lot like being a camp counselor, right? But all the time.
Yep.
And not to say that your staff are always going to be like kids. Yeah, I'm not trying to say we're not trying to infantilize baristas, but if you thought that what you were going to get into was this entrepreneur space that you have idolized by listening to Diary of a CEO or something else, what you're, like how I said, you're signing up for day camp and you have to manage sometimes some really tense emotions. And you think, well, I can't find good baristas. I know our coffee shop could be successful if I could just find the right people. In some ways that's true, but a lot of times we don't know what to look for because we haven't really embraced the idea that people are the key. So for us, it's our business plan that's the key. It's the concept, the franchise that's the key. And really it's relationships. You can make virtually anything work. If you're with the right people and you treat them right, and there's a good energy of positivity, others focused, servant hearts with humility, with a confidence to embrace the imperfect nature of our journey towards something joyful, then it doesn't matter if it's a table in the middle of a room or if you've got Subway tile and, you know, succulents and it's on the cover of Barista Magazine. It's going to lead to success.
Yes. And how you measure success may look different from person to person. What you've said, and I agree, is it's not just financial, right? There is a human value component to this of what are we providing to people, not just the customers. Absolutely. We want to provide them a great experience, but as even managers, what are we providing to our staff? What's the value we're providing to them and wanting to serve them and help them along the way as well? I've talked with a couple of people who've wanted to open shops before, and it's funny, a lot of them have not worked in coffee before. It's either our past employees, which is awesome, love talking with them about that, or it's people who've not worked in coffee before. And usually what I encourage, and I wonder if you'd agree with this, I encourage work in coffee first, or just anything with supervision. Just supervise someone somewhere. You can volunteer. Maybe you're a parent. Just get more comfortable. If you don't have experience leading others, that is what is shell shocking. That's what was shell shocking for me. I've seen lots of my managers hit that point of no matter how much I don't want to say warn, that sounds terrible, but you try to say, hey, this is the tough part. It still usually comes as a shock. Is there any type of other experience you'd recommend for people to have to kind of be able to receive that better, maybe on their first go or not?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. and it has to be a certain kind of leadership, an inescapable vulnerability. There's leadership that you can have that say, I was a team leader in a software development company where everyone's got KPIs that they're supposed to hit, and they're mostly self-managed. And I'm not trying to pick on engineers or software people or anything like that. But it's not the same as working elbow to elbow with somebody with hot milk soaking into your sneakers, trying to put your best foot, you know what I mean? Like this is the real stuff. So if you could get out of your comfort zone to do something completely different, that is, I don't know, go on a trip and volunteer with a charity or something to, in your own city, even go volunteer at shelters and be involved and become a team leader there, with people that are going out and handing out blankets in the winter. Go do things that are outside your comfort zone, because the things that you are confident in right now, they're not going to be as transferable as you believe they are. The unknown is going to be your best friend. Having a disposition that says things are conspiring for my success is way better to enter into than I got to ward off failure. And so by introducing yourself to the unknown and putting yourself in leadership positions, or even just forcing yourself to get in places where there's groups of people working on a common goal together in hard times, vulnerable places, that feels like you're going to encounter yourself there. And unfortunately, for a lot of baristas, owners are encountering themselves for the first time in the coffee shop. So then they get this owner who is maybe a little bit insecure, and they pass that off as passive aggression, ineptitude, which is a terrible word. I don't mean that to be insulting, but it really kind of translates into that. They're like, gosh, I don't know what's going on. This is a toxic, quote unquote, place to work. So most of the things you hear about when things go off the rails in a coffee shop, it boils down to how we started this journey and what place people and self-discovery played in the very beginning. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with pursuing leadership.
Yeah. So if managing people is the greatest challenge, hiring must be one of the top 3 most important components, if not the most important business operation task, whatever you want to call it, right? Hiring is vital, right? Bringing in the right people that will dictate your culture and things of this nature. You've been a manager at lots of shops. What is one of the most important traits you looked for in a barista when you were hiring?
I would say somebody who cares outwardly and has this others focused mindset. Somebody who is, and necessarily that means you're humble. That means you're there to help people. You just want to help people. And you have a track record of not only allowing yourself to be molded to be a better helper, but helping other people discover that about themselves too. And I look for that in people. It's a kind of a self-awareness, because people will enter into a coffee shop the same way that entrepreneurs enter into the industry. They want it to be done for you. Tell me what I should do and I'll do it. And then just kind of sit there. There's no motivation. There's no intrinsic vision beyond the coffee shop. There's no, like, they don't have batteries, as they say. I think it was like Jack Welch that said something like that. You want to hire people with batteries. You can't provide meaning and motivation for baristas. They have to bring it themselves. So if you can't see that in people, you don't hire them. Absolutely don't hire them. Work the bar longer just yourself. Keep shorter hours. Don't hire the wrong person. Make your business slow to grow, but with the right people, versus fast to grow with the people that, I had some red flags, but I feel like, and then we become the savior. I can change them. If they just had the right motivation, and I think they could be good. Because why? Well, they have experience and I don't. And so I'm just going to put them in. There was a spat of classes that I taught at Coffee Fast years ago. I used to ask this question: how many of you right now have somebody on your staff that you regret hiring that you wish you could fire? And almost every hand goes up.
Wow.
Because people source help in some sort of a last-ditch effort to put bodies behind the bar and have ultimately faith in the equipment, the coffee, the location. Almost none of that matters compared to the people. People will travel for good people, right? And I'm not saying people are bad, but there are bad fits. The intrinsic value of an individual, a person, their eternal soul, that's not what we're dealing with here. We're not here because we'd hire everybody, right? Your fit for the business has to be determined based on, I think, that self-awareness and that humility, that servant attitude that they bring. And it has to be based on values that you already have determined are your company's operational values. What does it look like to be kind? So we say, my value is kindness. Well, what do you mean by that? What does that look like on your bar? And if you don't know how to identify it, how could you hire somebody who has it? Because if there's a Q&A and they say, are you kind? They're going to say, yes. Yeah, I'm terrible. I hate people, but I'm thinking I might try kindness if you hire me. No, we don't want people to experiment with character traits and attributes at our bar for the first time. As much as we can, we want to identify people who have a history of already developing those things, and then we bring them on so that what they're already doing works with what we're already doing, so we can do more stuff.
And one more question on hiring. Would you say there's something tangible you can point to try and find that trait up front? Or is it just you gotta feel it out with a whole body of work sort of thing, right? You got to look at all the answers to the questions. Or is there a specific question you ask that? It may not be as direct as "Are you kind?" but maybe this specific question is really helping us understand more about that humility piece or that servitude piece.
I love frustrating people with the answers to these questions, because there is no like, we all want that question. And there are many questions you could ask. One of them might be like, in what ways did you contribute to the toxicity or dysfunction of your past employment, and how did you address those things to move past it? That's one. Now, if you ask that question, am I saying, hey, Chris said if I ask this question and I'm happy with the answer, this person's going to work out? Don't blame that on me if they don't. Because you got to call references and actually talk to them, and then take it with a grain of salt, because references are always going to be kind of the glowier references, right? These people know me, they love me. You should ask questions in the application. So people say, send us your resume. Okay, deal. Here's an application. Give us your availability. It's just boilerplate stuff, because I'm busy. You know what? I need to make dinner, and we're opening this coffee shop, and I haven't put the applications out, but I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it now. What's application, link to it, done. That's not going to yield great results because you rushed it. Give yourself the opportunity to discover what those operational values are, and then ask some questions in the application that are open-ended, related to the assumption that these people have already been practicing these values. Talk about a time where you served somebody else in your past jobs where you ended up growing a lot as you helped them develop themselves professionally. And I'm assuming in that question that you have had that time. And now here's your opportunity to tell me about it. And if they just skip it or put one sentence out there, something's amiss. I'm collecting a lot of intuitive pieces of feedback. Give yourself a long, thorough, and slow decision-making time. If today you said, and today on the 15th of February, you said, okay, by September, we're going to open a coffee shop. The idea of getting the right people should be your primary focus now, not in August.
Yep. And you said something earlier, it's worth repeating. wait for the right people. That is such good advice. And I've seen it before too. It's advice I give to my managers now. And once again, we had to learn it the hard way. This isn't because we're perfect or know what we're doing. We had to learn it the hard way. It's worth waiting for the right hire than rushing the wrong hire. So managing people's hard. You're hiring people. They're on your team. It's now time to train them. And we have soft skills, communication. We're ringing up orders on a point of sale. We got recipes. We've got steaming milk. We haven't even talked about like the craft of coffee, aerating milk, microfoam, extracting espresso, extracting pour over technique, WDT, RDT. There's all this information being thrown at this barista. Yeah. How long does it usually take for baristas to get comfortable? And do you have any advice on how does that go more smoothly? And maybe a kind of an eye-opening view for our customers of just how much baristas handle on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you covered maybe 10%, right?
Yeah.
And you just are in the way all the time when you're a new barista. You know, I had worked 17 years in coffee. I took a part-time job as a barista, just a barista here locally while I was building keys to the shop. And I told them, I said, treat me like a fourth grader, please. Like, I don't know what to do. This is your bar. And I still feel like after 17 years, I'm not like this whiz. I need to get to know where to put my feet and my hands so I don't have this like, oh my gosh, I'm like totally messing things up. It took me at least a month to really feel comfortable, a little bit comfortable. And that's only because I have a lot of experience. A new barista, we're talking at least 2 or 3 months before this person feels a kind of confidence that doesn't allow as much dread to enter their soul each time they are left alone while their coworker goes to the bathroom and someone comes in to order, right? That's what we're talking about. Now, that's all things being equal in terms of the company having a good onboarding process, which should almost never involve anything related to coffee science or plant genetics or all of that. And I will say it just right at that moment, time-wise, it is garbage. We do not need it. They don't need it. We love to do it. We love to talk about Caldi and plants and show them videos and look at this world of coffee. Really what they need to do is feel useful and be useful. They need to make mochas, Americanos, clean bathrooms. They need to know what buttons to push, what not to push, how to mop, all the basics. Onboarding needs to be real. Training needs to be real time, real stuff. Add the magic after they have already determined that they feel like a very competent and confident member of the team. Now, put the cherry on top. Talk about anaerobic coffees or something, you know? And that's fine. Introduce them to the Rayo spin on V60s, right? In that world. But if I'm taking Italian classes, here's the thing. This is a good analogy. If you went to Italy and you said, man, I don't know the language, and then someone said, I'll help you, but first, here are these tapes on German. I'm sorry, but that doesn't translate. And nobody's going to ask you about what extraction percentage or the TDS of your whatever brew. They're just going to ask you what's good. And they're going to say, how many calories does this thing have? Or where's the bathroom? And so if we're not treating this as our craft and art, we're going to set people up for failure. So training and onboarding will get people up to speed quickly if it is focused on the right things and builds momentum in what really counts first in the cafe. So give yourself a couple, 3 months to feel that kind of confidence. Now, if you want to become the kind of person who actually trains somebody else, hey, I've been here for a little bit. I'll show you some of the ropes type of person, 6 months to a year in that environment. Otherwise, what we do is we pass people off to, we don't have onboarding processes. A lot of people that I work with, maybe they don't have an onboarding process. They just pair them with the most senior barista, but who, by the way, is not paid extra to be a trainer. They're just kind of a de facto trainer to show them the ropes. There's no set day that you're learning a thing. There's no coaching or practice. It's just hit the ground running. If you can't hack it, then I guess you weren't the right hire. 100% wrong. Lots of great people have just fell through the cracks. Cracks provided by the owners. And they say, well, they'll fool themselves and say, well, it was because they weren't the right fit. And it was all along because you didn't give them the right resource. So it's a pairing. It's resourcing and time. So we need to be patient with the process. Now, there's some people will not work out. Sometimes after 4 or 5 months, somebody just refuses to steam milk the right way. Try as you may. And you may have to let this person go. No hard feelings, but milk steaming is kind of a thing we do, you know, or having a good attitude is kind of a thing we do. Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of lots of different directions in that answer, but does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and it's a challenge to owners and to managers to say, are you actually equipping your teams for what they need? Right. A lot of times we like to put the blame on others, but hey, are you actually upholding a standard of training here and onboarding that's equipping them well? I think it's also a really good wake up call, or maybe just a good information for the customer. Because even in great training, there's an element of there's a lot going on and this takes time, right? And once again, it may look like that simple cup of coffee, and yet 3 months to get comfortable with just all the components of the job. And that's even before we're digging really deep into the craft and perfecting the nuances of this. And so my encouragement is customers give grace and patience to these baristas, right? And owners own up to it. I remember my first job in coffee, my first training, I got like literally probably 1 hour of training. They were like, this is what you do. And my trainer had to use the bathroom. And I started getting so nervous because I was the only one on bar. And I'm like, oh no, I just know this is going to happen. And lo and behold, my trainer leaves, someone walks in, and they just look like a coffee snob. They just, they just looked the part. I don't even know what it was. I just knew. And they walked up and ordered like a triple shot dry cap. I don't even know all these words at the time that I didn't even know. And I was so embarrassed and I was so caught off guard, and they were so mad. And so anyways, goodness, what are we doing to equip our baristas as owners? And then customers, please show a little grace to these baristas. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that it takes to make these cups of coffee.
Yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Let's round this out with, there is so much more we could talk about here, but we're going to go and kind of start landing the plane here. I'm just curious to hear, what is one of your most memorable moments, specifically in a coffee shop? You could have been a manager, you could have been a customer. Just what's a memorable moment you've had in a coffee shop?
Oh man. That's a hard question. I don't know that one particular memory comes back in such vivid detail, but there's two things. Okay, one, and this is a funny example. When I was working, this one's related to the culture behind the bar. There was somebody who always used the company phone at this place that I used to work. And they were just like abusing the privilege. They would take personal calls on the company phone. They would have people call. It was weird. It was just like, and it was really disruptive to us as baristas. And we're like, we just got done talking about how big of a deal it is to like make this whole thing work. And so they weren't being a very good customer, to be honest with you. And so I got sick of it, and I can be a little bit intense as a person. So I just kind of said, hey man, why don't you get a phone? Like, cause he refused to get a cell phone. He didn't want a cell phone. He used our phone like his personal phone. Oh, and he just yelled and yelled and yelled at me in front of everybody. And yeah, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said it, right? I should have held it in, journaled about it or something, but it happened. So now I'm thinking word's going to get back to the owner, to the manager and all this stuff. But my manager in the day, when she heard about it, she just was like, she didn't say this. It was a much more frank, honestly. I'll keep it PG. She was like, "I'll screw that guy." She knows exactly who I was talking about. And it sounds like such a weird example, but it really drove home to me the importance of having a manager who understands the nuances, that not everything is about the customer is always right. They understand how hard the job is. They contextually, they know exactly the situation, and they're on your side. This is also a person who wrote me up for not, focusing to as much as I should on the condiment bar. So it's not like she was just going to give me straight A's because, she was just like toxically nice. She just demonstrated something that was like, oh, we're on the same team. And it made sense. Now, I didn't do that again after that. I wasn't licensed to do it again. Now, on the other side, I can't identify, out of all of the years I've been doing it, I can't identify one moment. But I think for me, the moments, the category of moments, have to do with familiar customers who just truly feel comfortable with you, the space, and your service. And it takes people a little bit of a dance to end up that way. It takes investment. They feel confident, comfortable, and you know a little bit about their life. Not, you're not digging for it, but connecting with people and knowing that they have a professional and kind of understood confidence in this, and that you're a part of that. You can't replace that. In stories of people, you see people's families grow up. You make special drinks for kids. Like some things that stand out might be like making a smiley face free pour latte art, like Sammy Piccolo, formerly of Cafe Artigiano and now of Prado in Vancouver, invented this like way to make a smiley face for latte art. So every time a kid gets a hot chocolate, I always gave him a smiley face pour. And you just kind of wait for the, oh, look. And I'm more happy about that than the architect who gets my 7-tier tulip. You know what I mean? Like, they may be happy, but if this kid is happy with it, with my hot chocolate, that feels like a really, a little touch point of hospitality when you can go out of your way to do something personal in the space that is not necessary to run somebody out their wallet that they forgot, to make a drink over that got spilled on a table, but you could have made them pay for a new one. It's those moments I feel show people we're still people together on this earth, experiencing life together. And we understand that we're not so stingy and calculating that we're going to force you into the mold of our systems and refuse you the human experience. Are actually going to look for ways to facilitate the human experience through coffee. And I think those moments are varied and vast. Those are probably the best ones.
Love it. Chris, love the information you've shared with us today, just to kind of look behind bar and see what it takes, what is happening just to make these drinks for customers. How can people follow you, get more about your consulting? Where should they go?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Yeah, they can go to keystotheshop.com. You can go to the consulting page, learn more about what I offer there, but there's also all the episodes on the episode page. Instagram at Keys to the Shop. Follow me on LinkedIn, Chris Deferio on LinkedIn, and my email is chris@keystotheshop.com. I'm, I think, known for being pretty approachable in terms of people who have questions, whether you just want to say, hey, and chat for a second. I've been known to leave voice messages and have conversations with people just because it's fun. So I hope people reach out. If anything, just go to the show and subscribe to Keys to the Shop. And in your podcast player, I would recommend, because we have probably close to 850 published episodes now. Just search the topic that you're interested in. We always do like show notes that have related topic interviews. And that's the kind of universe that will help you get an idea of what we do at Keys to the Shop. Subscribe, make contact, and maybe we'll get to have a conversation.
Excellent. Well, we will have that link in the show notes. And it's interesting. This is the final episode of a 4-part series about how coffee gets from the farm to the cup. And there's at least 2 things that are consistent in so many differences of the different stages. 2 things are consistent. You have coffee beans and you have people. And I love that's how we're ending it today, is it's about people. It really is about people. And so, Chris, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And of course, to all of our listeners, just thank you so much for joining us in this. Go check out Keys to the Shop, and thank you for helping us cultivate freedom.